Since it's nearly Halloween, in this video, we'll be looking at the Joker. Actually, we'll be looking at the topic of chromosomes. Okay, if you don't know what this is, then this is the right video, and I hope that this video will make it clear for you. So let's start off with a famous guy, The Rock. Okay, he's going to represent our average human. What happens when you look really closely at The Rock? Say with a microscope. You will see cells, right? We know that we're made up of cells. It's the smallest living thing that we're made of. And we have different types of cells, right? We have brain cells, skin cells. That's why different parts of our body looks different. And these cells have different functions. Our liver cells do liver things. Our brain cells do brain things, right? And thankfully, because they all do different things, we can do very complicated things. Like because we're a pretty complicated organism. We can think, we can cry, we can do all these different things, okay? So if we look even closer, in here, what is this? This is the nucleus. If we look into our nucleus, we can see something called a chromosome. So this is what today's topic is about. A chromosome is in the nucleus of a human or any living kind of thing, like a plant or a cow or whatever. Any kind of organism like that, a plant or an animal. And the chromosome, so depending on what organism you are, you have different numbers of chromosomes. So humans, if you look into our nucleus, you'll find 46 of these chromosomes. A cow might have something else, and a monkey might have something else. And what's the purpose of the chromosome? So the chromosome contains our DNA. You can see, if you look really closely, you can see lines, right? These lines is a long strand of DNA that is wrapped around tightly to form this chromosome structure. So the chromosome is essentially a way in which our DNA is stored in an X shape. Okay? So if we look closely into this chromosome, we'll see this. We'll see our DNA. A very long strand of DNA being wrapped around until it forms this structure. Now, if we unwind this DNA, you can see it's in a helix shape. It's like tightly coiled. If we unwind it, we see it like this. We can see all the letters, all the code that is being stored. C, A, G, or T. And depending on the order of this code, you can make different proteins. You can make different functions. Your body can have different functions. So that's why everyone is different, because our codes are slightly different. Our programming is slightly different. Therefore, we look different, act different. Some of us are stronger. Some of us are smarter. We have all these different functions. And then here, just for fun, this is the final structure, even more zoomed in. So don't worry about this. But now, if we were to not look at a human, let's look at, like, for example, say a bacteria. What will we see? We will see this. What do you notice? What's different? So in here, you can see there's a nucleus, right? So remember, bacteria are single-celled organisms. What's the difference between this bacteria and the rock? The rock is made up of billions and billions of cells, right? Whereas this bacteria is made up of a single cell. It's a single-cell organism. It can move around this flagella. It's got all it needs in one cell. Okay? So if we were to look into this cell, what do you notice is different? Our human cells have this nucleus. Inside the nucleus, we have chromosomes. There's no nucleus in this one, you notice? You see these strands are just floating around in the cytoplasm. So here's the same picture, just we're looking at this flat edge. You can see this, and you can see this. This right here is the chromosome. You can see there's no box or no nucleus in which the chromosome is stored. It's just floating around. And you can see the shape of the chromosome is different. You can see this is a circular shape, and it's one chromosome. Whereas in a human, we have 46 X-shaped chromosomes. So the shape's different and the number is different. We have many chromosomes, whereas a bacteria only has one chromosome in a circular shape. Now, if we look even closer, we'll isolate the chromosome. So you can see they're both chromosomes, just the shape and the number is different. One chromosome, circular shape. Many chromosomes, X shape. But now is where they get similar. If we look in detail into this bacteria chromosome, it will look the same as our DNA. Helical shaped, all the letters, all the same. All the codes are there. Same code, C, A, T, G, in different orders. So the main difference is the fact that it's circular and there's one chromosome, not many like ours, and X-shaped. So a good way to remember is that prokaryotes, so by the way, this cell right here is a eukaryote. It's the cell that animals and plants have and stuff like that, whereas bacteria have prokaryotic cells. And the difference is the fact that the eukaryotes has a nucleus, whereas the prokaryotes do not have a nucleus. Their DNA is just floating around, whereas our DNA is safely stored in the nucleus. So prokaryote means pro means before, and a karyote means nucleus. So before the nucleus, meaning they don't have a nucleus. Prokaryote, no nucleus. Eukaryote means with nucleus. Eu means with, karyote means nucleus. So now that you know the main difference between the chromosomes of prokaryotes and eukaryotes, let's look at some other important ones. So again, here we have the prokaryote, here we have the eukaryote. So again, prokaryotes represent bacteria, eukaryotes represent animal, plants, and that kind of thing. Anything that's multicellular, like has any organism made up of more than one cell, basically, that's a eukaryote. So let's look at the differences. Prokaryotes have a plasmid. One sec. This is a plasmid. You notice the DNA, the chromosome is right here. There's another piece of DNA called a plasmid. It's separate from the normal DNA, the chromosome. It's separate from that. Whereas humans, we don't have plasmids. All these circles you're seeing here, those are lysosomes, which is like the garbage can of the cell. They're not plasmids. So eukaryotes do not have plasmids. Prokaryotes have plasmids, this extra piece of DNA. And just for now, plasmids, so you have a vague idea of what's going on, plasmids are pieces of DNA that are useful for bacteria to transfer between each other, because this piece of DNA, this plasmid, may have a code that's going to help this bacteria survive medicine that humans eat. So, and another one might not have that. So it's good that this bacteria can transfer that DNA to the other one so the other one can survive. That's pretty much what a plasmid is. Humans, eukaryotes don't have that. So just know, yes plasmid, no plasmid. Okay, this one's simple. Prokaryotes have DNA not enclosed in the nucleus. You can see the DNA, the U chromosome, is just floating around there. Whereas in eukaryotes, it's enclosed in this membrane, this nuclear membrane, this green brownie thing. It's not in direct contact with the cytoplasm, the blue thing. Okay, prokaryotes have a singular chromosome. So this right here, this chromosome is singular. It's just a big circle, like this. There's not two pieces or three pieces, there's just one. It's one chromosome, whereas eukaryotes have two or more chromosomes. So you can see here, this is a human, there's 46. So I don't want to count them out, that'll take too much time, but you can imagine there's 46 chromosomes here if it's a human, maybe 3 if it's some worm or whatever. Depending on the organisms, there's different amounts of chromosomes. But eukaryotes always have 2 or more chromosomes. Prokaryotes always only have 1 chromosome. Okay, last one. This is the one people find most confusing. No histones associated with DNA and histones associated with DNA. Histones is a protein, okay? And I'm going to show you here. It will make more sense. So what do I mean histones? If we had to uncoil this one and make it into a big circle, this is what we'll see, right? So you can see here, big circle. And if you look closely, you can see the double helix, right? And it's the same thing, the same structure, different code all the way throughout. Okay, there's no other kind of molecules. There's just DNA molecules. But that's what I mean, no histones. It's just DNA. What are histones? Histones can be seen in eukaryotes. So if we take a chromosome and we zoom in closely, okay, we will see this. If we remember how I said that chromosomes, as you can see here, are made up of like many DNA, long DNA molecules. If we unwind it, if we start unwinding it like this, and keep unwinding and keep unwinding and keep unwinding, we'll have a single DNA molecule, right? A single long DNA molecule. But you notice here, the DNA molecule, as it's being wounded, it's being winded together with histones, these little balls. You can see they're wrapped around these little histones, and they're continued wrapping with these histones until they're so tightly wrapped in this chromosome structure. So there's something called histones in eukaryotic DNA, in eukaryotic chromosomes, whereas there's no histones in prokaryotic DNA. So let me show you a bit better of a picture, just so you understand the full idea. Here's our code. Here's our DNA in a helix shape. Our DNA is made into a chromosome shape by wrapping it in these histones. It's basically a way of making the DNA super condensed, because we can wrap it super tight, and then once we have it wrapped in this histone, we can make another one and another one and another one. And then once we've made many of these DNA molecules wrapped with histones, we can wrap these histones around each other. You can see these balls, these histones along with the DNA is now being wrapped around each other and continued wrapping until it becomes so condensed that it's a chromosome. Okay, so that's the main difference. That's the trickiest difference, in my opinion, between prokaryotic and eukaryotic chromosomes, the histones thing. People don't really understand that or have trouble understanding the histones concept. It's just a little ball making it easier to condense the DNA. Because you can see this chromosome right here is way more condensed than this mess here, you know? Okay, so now let's actually take a look. Let's take out a chromosome and take a look at it and see what's the things you need to know about the structure of a specific chromosome. So chromosomes are really, really interesting. Basically, they're in this X shape, and different layers of the chromosome, so say this layer, code for different things. So maybe this layer codes for, let's say, height. This layer codes for eye color. This layer codes for hair color. This layer codes for muscle, whatever. All of the areas on a chromosome codes for a different thing. Now remember, a human has 46 chromosomes, so that means each chromosome has a different job, has a different code. So say right here we're looking at chromosome 1, and chromosome 1 has a lot of physical features, like I said, hair color, height, eye color, muscle, all of these physical features. That's the purpose of chromosome 1. I'm just being hypothetical. It's not actually the purpose. I don't know what the actual purpose is of chromosome 1, but I'm trying to set the theme, the idea what's going on. Each chromosome has a different codes for different functions, okay? So let's pretend that chromosome 1 encodes for all of these things that I just mentioned. Okay? Now what you need to know is each chromosome you have, we know we have 46 of these, but remember, you got one from your mom and one from your dad, right? Like you got half your DNA from your mom, half from your dad. So in this case, so chromosome 1, this side is your mom's, and this side is your dad's. It could also be reversed. This side could be your dad's, or this side could be your mom's. But one of them is from your mom, and one of them is from your dad. Okay? And we know your dad has a certain hair color, has a certain height, has a certain eye color, has a certain amount of muscle. Your mom has a certain amount of height, whatever, has a certain amount of eye color, hair color, whatever, the same things. So you need to know that at each level of the chromosome, the same thing is coded for. So at this level, it's always coded for, no matter, like for example, it won't be like this. What I'm trying to say is your mom's hair color won't be down here, and your dad's hair color won't be up there. They will always be at the same level of the chromosome. So hair color from your mom will be at the same level as the code for the hair color of your dad. The height of your mom will be at the same level as the height of your dad, as your dad's DNA. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is just that the location is always the same of the features of your mom and your dad on the chromosome. They're not mixed around randomly. There's always a specific place they need to be. So we can call each of these things genes. So this is genes. This is the gene for, like we said, hair color or height. Forgot. And this is the gene for another thing. And this is the gene for another thing. And this is the gene for another thing. Now, so genes are located on specific places, on specific chromosomes, not random. So what do I mean by this? That means like, let's use you and me. Let's say we look at both of our chromosome 1s. Both of our chromosome 1s will have the exact same genes on them. So on your chromosome 1, you will have, on the first row, you will have height. On my chromosome 1, the first row, I will also have height. On your chromosome 1, row 2, you will have hair color. I will also have hair color. So the genes are always located on the exact same places. So if you take someone's genes out of their body and you look at their chromosome 1, everyone's chromosome 1 will have the same types of genetics, same types of genes in them. They will have different variations because not everyone has the same hair color, not everyone has the same height, so the gene will be at the same place, but the variations will be different. So what do we call these variations? We call them alleles. So alleles is like a fancy way of saying version. I like to think of it as a version. So this is your mom's allele, this is your dad's allele, your mom's version and your dad's version of this specific gene. This is your mom's version or allele of this gene. This is your dad's version of this gene or allele, okay? So allele is just a fancy way of saying version. So it's a different form of a specific gene. So your dad's allele or version might be black hair, whereas your mom's allele or version might be brown hair, okay? So depending what combination you inherited from your parents will affect the way or the color that your hair is, okay? This is for now not important. This is just a add-on so you can understand what's happening here. We know that our genetics is a code, right? Like this. So this code right here might be, let's say this code right here is right here. So this code might be, so we don't understand it because it's like it's not like English words. It's random letters put together that your body understands. So this code right here might represent green eyes, whereas this code might be another code which represents blue eyes, okay? So depending on the code, your body will make that happen, okay? So it makes it happen through transcription and translation, which is what you'll learn about later. This is basically the process of making that gene real. This is the process of making your eyes green as you grow up, as you're in your mom's womb, becoming a person. So these genes are then being expressed through transcription and translation. But if you don't know what this is yet, just know that these are the processes that make your genes real. It's making your genes actually happen by expressing them and making your body have them. So this is basically it that you need to know about chromosomes. Just know, I would say, the difference between, just understand where a chromosome is, depending if it's a prokaryote or a eukaryote, and know the main differences of the DNA or the chromosomes between prokaryotes and eukaryotes, and just know what a chromosome really means. Like know what it stands for. The genes, that are always in the same place. You have your moms and your dads, and they can make you look the way you look depending on what your genes are and the alleles that you have. Just understand that concept, and then that's the majority that you need to know for this specific topic.